We're drowning in data, right? Weather forecasts, stock charts, it's everywhere. But have you ever thought about the data that isn't there? Like, how do we fill in the blanks or take a really good guess about what's coming next? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
It's a classic problem, isn't it? You're looking at a chart, you can see the trend, but the one specific point you need is just gone. Or maybe you're just sitting there wondering, okay, is this trend going to keep going? Well, it turns out there are a couple of super simple but really powerful tools that are made for exactly this situation.
And here they are, our two secret weapons, interpolation and extrapolation. I love this analogy. Think of interpolation as being a detective. You're piecing together clues inside a timeline you already know. Extrapolation, though, that's more like being a futurist. You're looking at the patterns we have now to predict what's just over the horizon. You really need both to see the whole picture.
All right, so what's the big difference between these two? It's actually super simple. It all boils down to one question. Are you looking inside the data you have or beyond it? Okay, first step, interpolation. Honestly, the easiest way to think about this is reading between the lines. Let's say you have a starting point and an ending point, like you know the temperature at 10 a.m. and you know it again at noon. Interpolation is just making a really good logical guess about what the temperature was in the middle, say at 11 a.m.
Now, extrapolation, that's a whole different game. It's all about continuing the story. You're taking the trend you've already seen in your data and you're just extending it out into the future, into the unknown. So, using that same example, if your temperature data stops at noon, extrapolation is how you'd predict what it might be at 1 p.m.
So here's the absolute key takeaway, the thing to remember. Interpolation, that's the safe bet. It's an educated guess you make inside the boundaries of what you already know. Extrapolation, though, that's a prediction, a forecast. It's made outside those boundaries. So one is filling in the blanks, the other is trying to predict the future. Big difference.
Okay, enough theory, right? Let's get our hands dirty and see how this actually works. We're going to use a super simple example and walk through both of these step by step. All right, check this out. We've got some data here showing how far a car has traveled at a few different times, 0 seconds, 2 seconds, and 4 seconds. So here's our first challenge. What was the distance at exactly 3 seconds? See what's happening here? That question is asking about a point between the numbers we already have. And that's our big clue that we need to use interpolation.
The logic for this is actually really clean and simple. Let's look at the points on either side of our mystery spot. We've got 4 meters at 2 seconds and 8 meters at 4 seconds. The trend is pretty obvious, right? It's going up by 4 meters every 2 seconds. So since 3 seconds is exactly halfway between 2 and 4 seconds, it just makes sense that the distance would be halfway between 4 and 8 meters. And what's that? Yep, 6 meters. Easy peasy. All right, so we filled in the blank. Piece of cake. But now for the fun part. What if we want to predict the future? Our data totally stops at 4 seconds. So if we want to know the distance at 6 seconds, we have to go beyond our data. And that, my friends, is a job for extrapolation. So how do we do it? Well, it actually starts the exact same way. First, we spot the trend. We already know it's a steady 4 meters every 2 seconds. But this time, instead of looking between the points, we extend that pattern past our last data point. So we start at 8 meters at 4 seconds, we project forward another 2 seconds, which means we add another 4 meters, and bam, we land in our prediction, 12 meters.
Okay, so these tools are awesome. They're super powerful. But, and this is a big but, they come with some warnings. It's actually really easy to fall into a few common traps if you're not paying attention, so let's talk about what to watch out for.
Okay, here are the 3 big ones to avoid. First off, don't just assume every trend is a perfect straight line. Because, real life is messy. Data can curve and dip in ways you don't expect. Second, and this one is so important, the further out you try to predict, the more of a guess it becomes. Your certainty just drops off a cliff. And finally, this is a simple one, but it'll get you. Always double check your units. Are we talking seconds or minutes, meters or miles? That stuff really matters.
And if you remember nothing else, remember this. Extrapolation is an estimate, not a fact. Seriously. While interpolation is pretty safe, extrapolation is at its heart a guess. Yeah, it's an educated guess, but trends can and do break all the time. Think about it. The car in our example could hit a red light. A company's amazing stock growth could just stop. The real world is full of curveballs that can completely change the pattern. So please, treat those predictions as possibilities, not promises.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is cool, but why does it matter to me?
Well, if you've ever had to take a standardized test, something like the ACT, you've already faced this head on. The science section in particular is notorious for testing exactly these skills. So here's your quick and dirty guide for acing those questions. Tip 1, if the ACT asks you to find a value that's missing between the numbers on a table, that's your signal, that's interpolation. Tip 2, if it asks for a value that's beyond the end of the graph, boom, you're extrapolating. And tip 3, this is the most important one. Only use the pattern they give you in the data. Don't bring in your outside knowledge about science or whatever. Just stick to the pattern on the page. That's it.
So there you have it. You've got the tools now. The next time you see a chart or a graph, don't just glance at the dots. Really look at it. Look for the story that's hiding between those points. And then ask yourself that powerful question: where is this story going next?